below. I've got some thoughts though on the Cincinnati
Sure.
Bengals. So
Please give me some Cincinnati Bengals thoughts. I mean, that game looked like it was kind of a back and forth contest where I genuinely thought the Jags were coming up on you.
oh, don't you worry about that. So I've seen a lot. I've seen a lot of narratives, and I've made 2 new rules for myself this week. I am not responding to comments on Twitter about the Cincinnati Bengals or on Discord servers, and I deleted Reddit. I am not responding to comments if you misspell Zac Taylor's name or you misspell Joe Burrow's name.
How are
Because
people spelling Joe Burrow? I mean, Zac Taylor, okay, yeah, I get that, but
they
Joe
add an S.
Burrow?
They call him Joe Burrows.
Oh, yes, the
And
classic Joe
so
Burrows.
I've decided that if you're doing that, then you don't know the team well enough to actually be saying anything. And the reason I came to this conclusion, and we'll talk here about the Andrew Luck comparisons and stuff as well. I'm not going to ignore that. But the reason I've come to this comparison is because I've seen all these people saying, oh, well, Jake Browning's a nobody. Kirk Cousins, you need to trade for Kirk Cousins. The Bengals should be trading for Kirk Cousins or Jameis Winston or, whoever else. I've seen a lot of Kirk Cousins. The Bengals should not trade for Kirk Cousins. And I say this as a Kirk Cousins guy. I have hyped up. You can go back and look at when Kirk Cousins was starting for other teams. I have hyped up Kirk Cousins before. He should not be a Cincinnati Bengal because what the Atlanta Falcons are going to want for him is going to be way too much. First of all. Second of all, they gave him way too big of a contract, which the Bengals would likely have to pay most of. Unless there's some really, really good deal you get on Kirk Cousins, which I doubt you will, the Bengals are not trading for Kirk Cousins. And it just is not. He didn't look great in Atlanta when we last saw him. There's a reason Michael Penix Jr. is starting now. It doesn't make sense to me. Jameis, I can kind of understand. It would be cheaper. It'd be fun. It'd be, this. But, why are we, just all of a sudden selling out on Jake Browning? Bengals fans that were with us 2 years ago, do you remember the Jake Browning hype of 2023? That dude was awesome. Yeah, Chus was here. Chus remembers.
Can I say something? Can I say something? Yeah, Jake Browning. I'm not gonna lie, I actually thought he was pretty clutch, all things considered, for you guys. I mean, for a good backup quarterback, coming from a Steelers fan, I mean, this guy was solid. I mean, you guys finished 9-8 that year, despite all the injuries and everything that happened.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, whenever I was rebuilding, and I know I love to use my fantasy comparisons and whatnot, but I had him as a fantasy flex quarterback in a dynasty league. I actually used, and he's still on my bench. I'm very excited to be able to utilize him as a quarterback flex going forward, especially if some of my quarterbacks get hurt. I mean, I don't know why there's disrespect for Jake Browning. Like I said, there was a lot of hope after 9-8. I mean, there was a chance that you guys could have probably snuck in that season. I don't really remember the logistics of how that worked out.
So Jake Browning went 4-3 in the 7 games he started for the Bengals that season in 2023. Phenomenal record? No. But it was enough. It was enough to have them in playoff contention in the final few weeks of the NFL regular season. And that was in a season that the Bengals did not start out 2-0. The Bengals have not started out 2-0 since 2018. The longest tenured Bengal on this roster currently is Drew Sample. He was drafted in 2019. Zac Taylor was not the coach in 2018. This is the first time the Zac Taylor Bengals have started 2-0. And now we have Jake Browning starting. I understand the knee-jerk reaction to Joe Burrow being injured for 3 months. I completely get that. But don't pack it up right now. And I know the casual fan does not know who Jake Browning is. The casual Bengals fan doesn't know who he is. And the casual NFL fan definitely doesn't know who he is. And is he going to, have a great passer rating? Probably not. He'll probably throw an interception or 2 per game. Totally expect that to happen. However, let's look at, and I'm just going to go ahead and share my screen here so that everyone can look at this together. So we're looking at the Bengals schedule here. So we're 2-0. We've beat the Browns. Big win because that's a division rival. And we beat the Jaguars, okay? Which also, something I want to point out, the Bengals were losing that game when Jake Browning came in.
Yeah, he
And
came back and helped you guys win the game.
Yep. And it was a game-winning drive as well. So something of note. Okay. Let's just go to November. Let's get up to November.
November.
We got Vikings, September 21st. This Sunday.
Okay. Oh, we're going up to November. I thought you were
Yes.
just skipping September and October and just
No,
going to
no.
November.
I'm just
why
gonna,
are you doing that?
We're gonna see where we're at. I want to take this 1 week at a time.
Yeah,
and we'll just see. We'll see how Jake does. We'll see how injuries happen. Andrew Siciliano said there were, I think, 54 quarterbacks that started last season, and we could have 37 this week already. So, who knows what's going to happen? Injuries are crazy. And we've seen that with the Vikings already. Vikings don't have J.J. McCarthy. They're starting Carson Wentz. They don't have Aaron Jones. This was a winnable game before J.J. McCarthy went down. I think it's even more winnable now. Okay? I think the Bengals could start 3-0. That puts the Bengals in a very good spot for playoffs. Okay. I don't need Jake Browning to be amazing. I need him to just get us to December. And if we get to December and Joe comes back, okay. Broncos. This game, I could see it going either way. They didn't look great against the Colts, but I do still think their defense is pretty promising. I'm gonna give us that win for now. If they just look like crap against the Vikings, I will probably give that to the Broncos. Lions, I think they drop. Packers, I think they drop. Both great teams, both Super Bowl contenders. Like that, there's not really a good way to argue that. Steelers, I think we can win, which you just said that's a losable game for the Steelers as well.
Yeah, I argue. Like I said, I mean, I think the problem is regardless of who's in quarterback, I don't know what your offensive line looks like the last 2 weeks, but our pass rush has just been kind of non-existent, and that's crazy for a Steelers team that has like T.J. Watt, Cam Hayward. I mean, this team should be really pressuring these quarterbacks, and it just doesn't look like there's any pressure on these quarterbacks at all. So if you're not pressuring Jake Browning, God forbid nothing happens, he's going to be throwing to Jamar Chase and T. Higgins with a Chase Brown running back. I mean, the team the offense is still going to be good, and the defense is just decent enough that it'll probably, like, if your pass rush with Trey Hendrickson is just enough, it's gonna be fine. Like, and that's not good for us because we're not good against we're not really. Our offensive line, like I said, is just not good. But yeah, I think it's winnable, especially if it's home.
Yeah, and then I think we can take the Jets. I think that should be winnable no matter what. And then we're already to November, so I've got us going 4-2 up to November 2nd, which would put the Bengals at 6-2. Even if they lose that game to the Broncos, they'll be 5-3, which is still a pretty solid record, especially considering in that time we already have the win over the Browns, and then we're also getting a win over the Steelers in that time. November, the schedule's pretty easy in November, other than this Ravens game here at the end, November 27th. But you get the Bears, the Steelers again, and the Patriots. Maybe they go 1-1 against the Steelers. I don't know. Joe comes back around this time that they play the Bills and the Ravens. And those could easily be losable games. That's kind of where we get to the point where we're like, okay, let's see where we are. Let's see if Joe's coming back. Those are the question mark type stuff. And we're not even close to talking about that yet. But if Joe can come back and they're still in contention in December and they have to finish out with the Dolphins, the Cardinals, and the Browns, they should go 3-0 to finish out the season, even if they drop these Bills and Ravens games.
No, I agree.
I think the Bengals can still make the playoffs very easily.
I mean, you guys have an easy enough schedule that it should be possible. It's just making sure that everything kind of goes right. If your team stays healthy and you're very minimal on injuries, minus Joe Burrow being hurt for 3 months, this team could still be a pretty well well-rounded team going into playoffs. I don't know how high of a seed you guys would be. I feel like your ceiling to an extent would probably be what, 6? You think 6 would be a ceiling? Like
I mean,
probably 10-7, 11-6.
like I said, I want to take it week by week. But
Okay.
with Joe Burrow, if Joe Burrow's coming back, all you need is to get in. He's just
Right.
one of those guys. You mentioned the offensive line earlier, and this is another
Yes.
thing
Bengals O-line.
we're gonna talk about. The Bengals O line. So back up. Let's back up for a second. I've seen this comparison. I've seen this comparison of Joe Burrow to Andrew Luck. Joe Burrow has been sacked more than Andrew Luck was in his career in less games. I think it's like 71 games versus 84 games. And Joe Burrow's already been sacked like 20, 30 more times, maybe. Who is to blame? That is the question. And so a lot of people, and this is just something we do as humans, everyone wants it to be a simple black and white answer with absolutely no nuance to it. Just, I want to be able to point my finger at something, say that's what needs to be fixed, or that's who's to blame. And we do that with everything, especially complex things. And football is a complex game. I've been thinking about this for a while.
I can tell.
It is a statistical fact that the Cincinnati Bengals offensive line plays better with Jake Browning than they do with Joe Burrow. Now, is this because the Bengals offensive line hates Joe Burrow? No, of course not. That is a silly, stupid narrative that I saw a few people saying online. But against the Jaguars, and this is a small sample size, the overall pass blocking grade for the Bengals O-line was 49.9. With Jake Browning on the field, it was 73.1. Okay, that's a small sample size. So let's go back to 2023. In 2023, it was 67.2 with Browning and 54.6 with Burrow. Same offensive line. So what is happening here? Is the Bengals offensive line phenomenal? Great. No one's saying. I am not saying that. Could the Bengals have invested more into their offensive line? 100%. No one's arguing that. However, this is part of the nuance. I am not going to just say the Bengals have put out 30 new guys, 30 guys on this offensive line, and all of them have sucked. That doesn't make any sense. That's a terrible argument, in my opinion. They have a new offensive line coach too, so you can't even point to Frank Pollock anymore. Okay, so let's point to Zac Taylor. He's been another consistency. Why does Zac Taylor coach differently with Jake Browning than he does with Joe Burrow? Well, of course he's going to coach better with Jake Browning. You're gonna lean more on the run game, and defenses don't worry about the run game as much with Joe Burrow because Joe Burrow will just, throw the ball over the top of you and go for a 50-yard pass to Jamar Chase. He doesn't care. And they're different quarterbacks. They're going to be coached differently. Could Zac Taylor lean more on the run with Joe Burrow in the game? 100%. Again, we're blaming multiple people here. And up to this point, everyone's okay with blaming Zac Taylor. Everyone's okay with blaming the offensive line. And mind you, Dalton Reisner took blame for Joe Burrow getting hurt as well. So the offensive line is blaming themselves as well. But that still doesn't explain the bad grade. And I really do think, and this is where I would blame Zac Taylor more. I think that Joe Burrow does not do his offensive line a lot of good when it comes to his playing style. And that's a really hard pill for a lot of Bengals fans to swallow. But let's think about this. What is the thing that Bengals fans love, NFL fans love about Joe Burrow? He extends plays. He'll run around, get chased. He'll find someone. He'll throw people open. It's great. It's fun to watch. It's highlight material. However, the other hand of that is the entire time Joe Burrow is running around in the backfield, some of the offensive linemen are still trying to block for him. 2 seconds is a long time in the NFL. 3 seconds is nearly impossible. You get to 5 seconds and you're doing that on multiple plays in a row. Those guys are getting exhausted. They're doing that over and over again. 300-pound men trying to move 300-pound men. Everyone's going full speed. That's a lot. And so I think that and the part of Joe Burrow, he's always like wanting to go into spread offenses. He almost never lines up under center. He's always in shotgun. It just creates a ton of stress on the offensive line. It creates a ton of pressure on that offensive line, which it's okay to say to Joe Burrow, yes, what we love that you're able to do this, but learn to throw away the ball, please. And that's what I would like Zac Taylor to say to him. I would love for Zac Taylor as the coach to come to Joe Burrow and say, we don't need you to play hero ball all the time. We know that, like, it's just the way Joe's a competitor, and we love that about Joe. And he doesn't want there to ever be a broken play in his game. But if you want to stay healthy, it is in his best interest to throw the ball away sometimes. And this is not hating on Joe Burrow. It is okay to criticize Joe Burrow if it means his longevity is at stake. And so I'm blaming all three. I'm blaming Zac Taylor. I'm blaming the offensive line, who already took credit for it. And I'm blaming Joe Burrow. And I don't think that that's an unfair take. When you look at the game, when you look at how Joe plays the game, and yet if he's going to extend plays every so often, that's fine. That's great. Love that. Don't do it every play, though, because you're going to get your guys killed. And it just leads to injuries. I've been wanting to say that for days. So
I'm glad you could get that off your chest, Josh. I'm glad that you could
was
finally get that off your
chest. A lot. I would love to, I want Joe Burrow to, play as long as he can. So that's it comes from a place of love, not a place of hate. So
you don't think this has anything to do with obviously you mentioned like the quarterback playing styles and whatnot, but you don't think that the offensive line plays a little harder just because they know that Jake Browning is the backup quarterback with less experience, and they play a little bit more lax just because Joe Burrow is Joe Burrow and they have more confidence in him? Do you think it would be something like that as a possibility?
No, I think Jake Browning tends to line up under center more often. And when you have that, there's a chance that it could be a pass, but it could also be a run. When Joe Burrow's on the field, that it's 90% of the time going to be a pass play, which means the defensive ends can sell out for the pass and just tee off on that. They don't have to look at the running back. I'd like to see more, if we're going to keep doing that, see more 12 personnel with blocking tight ends and then get a big blocking running back in there. But with Jake Browning, you're handing the ball off more to Chase Brown. And then even when you're passing, you're doing it more of a screen pass or a shorter, just check down pass, which is fine. I mean, if that's what you need to do to win, that's what you need to do. But it's a different offensive scheme with Jake Browning in the game.
Right.
So I think this is a winnable. I think the Bengals can still make it to the playoffs from here where they stand right now. I mean, the defense has come up clutch 2 weeks in a row with turnovers. They have been playing decent. They've come up with red zone turnovers, which are key. I mean, they're not completely folding like they were last year. Shamar Stewart has an ankle injury, so that's something to monitor. But I don't know. I just feel something in my heart makes me think Jake Browning could do it. If he can just get us to December and have us in contention, and Joe can come back. Now, if Joe, if something happens and Joe can't come back, okay, that's a different conversation. And like I said, we're taking it week by week. But I don't think this team is automatically awful because Joe Burrow isn't it.
Right. No, and I agree with that.
But I might regret this, but let me know what you think down below. Who's to blame? Obviously, I think there's multiple people to blame. I don't think it's an easy one-way thing, but you let me know your thoughts on the Cincinnati Bengals. Could they have done more for Joe Burrow? Yes. Is it all on the front office? I don't think so, but definitely some of the blame is there. Let's